I have always taken observers, life, mind seriously. I don't think that mind is just some sort of quirky little embellishment on the great scheme of things. I think it is integral to the nature of the universe.
First question, is consciousness fundamental? You can't be sure of anything in this field, but having been through the arguments and the analysis, I guess I'm pretty confident consciousness is a fundamental property of the world. But this leaves open a bunch of further questions. Where does consciousness fit into the world? Is it relatively rare, only arising in association, say, with brains? Or is it ubiquitous, to be found absolutely everywhere, associated with every bit of matter? There's some pretty good chance that consciousness might be found everywhere. Some degree of consciousness associated with all matter.
We find ourselves in a universe that's conducive to being ever more conscious. You can look at the last 4 billion years on this planet. So there's a spreading web. Early on there was no or very little consciousness. Now there's vastly more consciousness. Now we're beginning to be interconnected with all of our technology and the internet. If we manage to avoid nightfall or environmental meltdown, if we manage to spread to the stars and to the galaxy as a whole, for all I know, maybe the universe is evolving towards some sort of a strange level of self-consciousness.
We can certainly imagine that there's plenty of time for life to spread across the galaxy. We can imagine our descendants building large spacecraft, and even if they travel at the modest speeds we can achieve now, they'd still cross the galaxy in a tiny fraction of the age of the galaxy. So there's really nothing in principle that I can see that would limit the spread of life and mind right across the cosmos. And so that conjures up the alternative image of a universe in the very far future saturated with mind. If the universe is about realizing its own mental potential or something, if it's going to end up, in effect, a mental as well as a physical phenomenon, then that completely changes the character of things. We wouldn't view the universe again the same way.
It gives a gigantic arc to the entire unfolding history of the universe. That's certainly a possibility, and it fills me with hope.
Consciousness is the most mysterious phenomenon we know of. Today, there's a growing sense that its existence reveals something profound about the basic character of the universe. Is life and mind intrinsic to cosmic evolution? And if so, how does it participate in the larger picture? One possibility exists in a radical interpretation of quantum mechanics, first developed by the physicist John Wheeler.
Modern quantum theory, the overarching principle of 20th century physics, leads to quite a different view of reality. The view that intelligent life, or communicating observer participators, are the whole means by which the very universe is created. Without them, nothing.
Before you make an observation, there is no such thing as a real existence of anything there. Everything becomes real at the moment when it is observed. So then, in a certain sense, the rest of the universe is alive only because I am alive. This sounds extremely paradoxical, but that's what we have right now. We trust these equations, we just need some interpretation.
Science today tells us that consciousness seems to be necessary to make quantum mechanics work, to make our physics work. But once you introduce mind into the mix, if mind is important here, then it's an open question how pervasive that influence of mind is.
When we look out in space, we look back in time. We see objects as they were a long time in the past. And if we see a photon from some distant quasar, say, then we're seeing something which was emitted before there was any life on Earth even. Now, the act of observation of the photon is, of course, central to projecting it into full reality. So it seems that our observations here and now have, in some backwards in time sense, an effect on the reality that was in the remote past.
This is the strange sense in which we have a part in bringing into being that which we think is already there in the world around us. We are participators in bringing into being not only the near and here, but the far away and long ago.
What we can say about the reality of 1 million years ago depends on the observations that we do today. This includes the laws that will give rise to the observers in the first place. The universe fine-tunes itself, it engineers its own self-awareness through the existence of observers that come later on in the scene.
There is probably a mental component to the universe, and if that is so, then there's no reason why this mental component shouldn't have had a hand in setting the conditions.
Science carried out an analysis of nature that went to such depth that it discovered that nature doesn't exist except as an object of description. Mind is necessary for the world to undergo the formality of existing. This is what quantum physics teaches. Unfortunately, this news has not reached the other sciences.
The extraordinary life-allowing balance of nature's constants has led some thinkers to consider life and mind could be essential outcomes of cosmic evolution, somehow required by the universe. Wheeler and others have suggested that life may participate in the very conditions of its existence, and thinkers including David Chalmers argue that quantum mechanics could preserve a deep role for mind in the world. Does Wheeler's theory describe how life and mind self-generates its own existence? And if so, how might conditions in our present be resolved by observers in our distant future? Introducing mind into our larger picture introduces an entire dimension of value, meaning, and experience, and understanding it may require a perspective that goes beyond materialism.
Understanding consciousness is a real key, I think, both to understanding the universe and to understanding ourselves. It may just take the right crazy idea.